You know, in the world of finance, data is, well, it's everything. It's the key to building the next big thing. But at the same time, it's this massive liability. Every single bank, every fintech startup out there is wrestling with this huge challenge. How in the world do you build and test the next generation of financial tools when your most valuable asset, your customers' data, is also your biggest risk? This is, and I'm not exaggerating, the multi-trillion-dollar question. If you use real customer data for development, you're walking through a minefield of privacy regulations and massive security risks. I mean, one leak, just one mistake, and all that hard-earned trust is completely shattered. So developers are stuck. They absolutely need realistic data to build solid, reliable systems, but they can't touch the real stuff. So, what's the answer? Well, a lot of folks are turning to something called synthetic data. The best way to think about it is like a stunt double for your real data. It's completely artificial, but it's generated to mimic all the important patterns and characteristics of the original. This lets developers do all the risky moves, all the testing, the debugging, the crazy experiments, without any of the real-world consequences. You get all the utility with almost none of the risk. Sounds like a perfect solution, right? Well, hang on a second. Here's the catch. Think about a movie. If your stunt double doesn't move, act, and look almost exactly like the star, the whole scene just falls apart, right? It's the exact same thing with synthetic data. If it's not a really, really good replica of the real thing, then any trading algorithm, any risk model, any fraud detector you build with it is going to fail and fail spectacularly the second it meets real-world data. So the big question is, how can you be sure it's good enough? This is what we call the trust gap. Before you can possibly bet your business on synthetic data, you need solid answers to some really critical questions. Does it actually behave the same way statistically as your real data? Does it capture all those weird, unique patterns that only show up in finance? And maybe most importantly, can you be 100% certain that it truly protects everyone's privacy? And this is where our solution for today comes in. Meet SFDAO. It stands for Synthetic Finance Data Auditor and Optimizer. It's an open-source tool built specifically to answer those questions and act as that quality assurance platform to bridge that critical trust gap we were just talking about. So in its current phase, which is called the Auditor, SFDAO gives you this incredibly powerful toolkit. It runs a whole series of evaluations, it checks the statistical quality, it verifies that it captures those finance-specific behaviors, it assesses the privacy risks, and then, and this is key, it packages everything up for you in an automated report. Okay, so how does it actually do all this? Let's geek out for a second. For statistical checks, SFDAO doesn't just do basic comparisons. Nope, it uses sophisticated methods like something called Jensen-Shannon divergence. Now, that's a fancy name, but it's basically a scientific way to score just how closely the patterns in your fake data match the patterns in your real data. This gives you mathematical proof, not just a gut feeling. And this is what's really cool. SFDAO isn't some generic data tool. It actually understands finance. For example, it specifically checks for something called volatility clustering. This is a real-world pattern where chaotic, high-volatility periods in the market tend to clump together. Does your synthetic data do that too? SFDAO will tell you. And of course, there's the big one, privacy. SFDAO runs an audit for re-identification risk. In plain English, it calculates the odds that some clever attacker could take your anonymized synthetic data and reverse engineer it to figure out who the real people are. For anyone in compliance or security, this is an absolutely non-negotiable check. Now, you might be thinking, a tool this powerful has got to be complicated to set up, right? Actually, no. The developers made it incredibly easy to get going. It's literally a simple 3-step process. You clone the code from the repository, you install the requirements with one command, and then you run the audit command. That's it. You get a full audit report. And that kind of power and simplicity doesn't just happen by accident. The project's reliability comes from a really deep commitment to quality that was baked in from the very first line of code. The whole thing is built using what's called test-driven development, or TDD. It's this rigorous process where, first, you write a test that you know is going to fail, that's the red step. Then you write the absolute simplest code possible to make that test pass, that's green. And finally, you clean up and improve the code. It's this beautiful, simple cycle that ensures every single feature is rock solid by design. But here's the thing. SFDAO isn't stopping at just being an auditor. Not even close. The project has a really ambitious roadmap for the future. The plan is to move from just checking data to actively creating and improving it. This whole vision is laid out in 3 phases. Right now, we're in phase 1, the auditor. But next up is phase 2, called the generator and logic, where SFDAO will actually help you create synthetic data and enforce business rules on it. And after that comes phase 3, the optimizer, which aims to use AI to automatically tune and improve the quality of the data it generates. And if you dig into the details, it gets even cooler. Phase 2 plans to bring in powerful generators, including the same kind of large language models that power tools like ChatGPT. It'll also add what they call logic guards to enforce things like basic accounting rules. Then phase 3 gets even more advanced, using reinforcement learning, a type of AI that learns from trial and error, to build a system that basically teaches itself how to generate better and better data over time. So this all sounds great, but why does this matter to you? Well, because SFDAO isn't some closed-off corporate product locked away in a vault. It's a community-driven, open-source project. And what that means is that you can actually be a part of shaping the future of how financial technology gets built. The project is available under the MIT license, which is one of the most friendly and permissive open-source licenses out there. Basically, it means it's completely free for anyone to use, to modify, and to build on top of. It doesn't matter if you're a student in a dorm room, a startup founder in a garage, or an engineer at a giant global bank. And hey, if you're a developer, they actually want you to get involved. Contributing is really encouraged. The whole process is super straightforward and follows all the best practices. You fork the code, you create a new branch for your cool new feature, you build it using that same test-driven development cycle, and then you submit it back to the project. It's a direct way to make a real impact. So this brings us all the way back to where we started. Tools like SFL offer a really clear path forward for innovating safely in finance, and it leaves us with one final question to think about. If we can finally, truly trust our data stunt doubles, could audited, high-quality, synthetic data be the key that finally unlocks a new era of faster and safer financial innovation for all of us?